Welcome back to another episode of Relatively Damaged Live. My name is Angela.
And I'm Kat.
The live shows are currently streamed on Mondays to Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and I'm not sure, somewhere else. I feel like there's somewhere else. To Kat's channels, to my channels. So just remember to follow and subscribe and share with your friends if you like what we're talking about. On Mondays, Kat and I generally talk about topics that we find interesting for about 30 minutes. This month actually, we have really been leaning into the topic of suicide awareness. As many of you know, September is Suicide Awareness Month. So not only are we talking about it this week, but we will close out the month with a fantastic guest next week, a fantastic surprise guest next week that we will be sure to tell you about in our post about the live coming up. So today's topic is how come feelings like sadness feel like they will never end? They're just so overwhelming. Like, yeah.
Oh, that's a great question. And I think it's because everybody can relate to it. I think rare is the person who has never experienced that sadness. I'm looking at things like they say that are the most stressful in life. And what is it usually? Deaths and divorces. And those are losses.
Yeah. They are. They're huge losses. Yeah, I actually did write a poem. Unfortunately, I know someone going through a struggle right now that the pain is so much, and so my heart broke for them. And this is what came out of my empathizing with them. My heart broke yesterday when I was pushed away. I reached for the phone to call you and remembered we had ended. I reached for the phone again, checking for your text that never came. And I'm grateful for the pain that tells me I loved you. And I'm sad that the pain will end because that's when I will know it is over. Which is not in my book, and I forgot to put it up on the screen for everybody. Well, Kat, now we can't see you.
I'll move the chair over.
I wonder if we went to a different setup. Hey, that's better.
That'll work. I was
but now
trying
we
to
can't
make
see
sure
the whole poem.
Yeah. Oh no. Okay, we'll go back there.
Yeah. Now we're learning about technology. It's not our friend right now, but that's okay. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I relate when you say divorces and death. I mean, those are huge.
Mm-hmm.
And even a breakup of this was someone breaking up with it was a boyfriend girlfriend situation, and it's still a loss. Like, how often do we go to those thoughts about those people during the day? You know what I'm saying?
Oh God, I know having lost a 15-year relationship at one point, it was very difficult. I didn't want to eat. I did the bare minimum. I went to work. I came home and just slept a lot until I was really ready to break out of that and to slowly start taking control of that. And I know other people, and I think probably one of the greatest losses is the loss of a child.
Yeah.
Because people talk about the natural order of things. The parents will predecease the child. but it
Yeah.
doesn't always happen that way. And the suffering that people have gone through, and their grief and their sadness and their loss is really, really difficult to go through. But one thing I've noticed from my own experience, and from those people who I've seen go through a loss, especially the loss of a child, is they find their purpose in something else.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I know someone who lost their preteen to cancer, and they honor his memory all the time. They're runners, so they have a 5K for him to help raise money, uh, for cancer research, so that hopefully other kids who have that form of cancer won't die. And
Hmm.
so they're finding that purpose in their loss.
Yeah. Which is really important, I think, for us to look at. But I also want to talk a little bit about, from my understanding of what happens physiologically inside of us
Mm,
when
okay.
when a loss happens. I mean, how often do I even like to think about it this way. If I'm in a relationship or like with my kids, how often do I go to those thoughts about them to find strength or support or to send them love? And and when they're no longer there, I have worn those paths in my brain or in my heart so well. There are no weeds on that path, right? It's easy to get there. The path is smooth. And then all of a sudden I keep going there in my mind or
Hmm.
in my heart, and now they're gone. And so every time I go down that path, now it's like a that searing pain of, oh
Mm,
yeah, they're not there anymore. And that really does happen to in our bodies, in our brains, in our hearts, um, in our souls. That loss is actually really even a loss of what to do. Like those cells, that energy doesn't know what to do anymore.
hmm.
Um, there's a whole physiological breakdown. I know that much, and I'm not really good at articulating that at this point in time because I didn't go back and study over it before today's
Hmm.
podcast. But it's real. The loss. So not only is it a loss in the real world, but inside of us, a loss of those paths, of those thoughts. Now those thoughts almost betray us because they cause pain.
Right, right. Well, and I mean, when I was talking about just going to work, doing the bare minimum, not being able to eat, that's the physiological response as a result of that. I
Mhm.
I I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Um, but here the thing is that, and I love that you use the metaphor about the well-worn path without weeds. The weeds start to grow up there, but we find
Mhm.
other paths.
Yeah, and maybe in some ways, if we're going to use a metaphor, some of those weeds have some really beautiful flowers. So when we go back to visit those memories later, we can find
Yeah.
that beauty in it, even though it was so painful to get beyond that process of through that suffering, because I really do believe it's whew, it's suffering. It's
It is
yeah.
definitely suffering. Um, but you know, that loss is so immediate, and you're like, what am I going to do? This you know this person, this, whatever. It could be a job, it could be leaving an organization, um,
Yeah.
because it often becomes such a big identity. I mean, I know a lot of people struggling with the church, for example. It's
Mhm.
something else, and I don't want to go into that necessarily, but it's, you become so identified with this religious identity or with that community that you're involved in. But when you're at such tension with what they're saying and what they're believing, and then you decide you can't stay there anymore, I mean, then it's like, who are you? And what is everything that you believe? I mean, it's almost in those cases, a lot of it's an identity crisis. And sometimes when we put that identity, well, if, I am the spouse of this person, I am, a lawyer, a librarian, whatever. You put that identity as part of yourself. And I mean, that's the other kind of aspect of it. We are whole within ourselves. But when we start identifying ourselves as the spouse of the person who has this position, I am a lawyer, I am a teacher,
instead of just I am. And
right.
then I am, and for instance, I am Angela, and I also happen to be a poet. And I also happen to be a host of a podcast. And I also happen to be a mother and a friend and many things.
Right. And for me, that was actually so important in my healing to realize, and I've shared before a ring that I have, and I didn't put my rings on today because my hands are a little swollen, but it says, I am enough.
Yeah.
And I actually happened to get that from suicide awareness, because I wanted to support the cause. And I think that's a great reminder for anyone that I am enough. And so those identities come and go, those people in our lives come and go. The jobs come and go, the careers come and go, the identities come and go, because our identities are constantly shifting.
Yeah, we don't like to think of that though, right? Like we think, even though I can look back 5 years and say, totally, my identity has shifted in the last 5 years. I have changed in many ways. But when I think of myself in the future, I think of myself in the state I'm in right now in the future. And I don't think of the possibility of that change. In fact, if anything, sometimes if I'm trying to change, it becomes overwhelming to think of the possibility that I might be different in another year or two. Isn't that interesting? But I can look back and be totally cool with it.
Right. Funny, I hadn't thought of that before, but yeah.
Leave it to me.
Of course. Always stay curious. But that's part of that process of overcoming that. It's increasing the awareness that we have. And we've talked before about the work of Byron Katie. Is this really true?
Right.
Asking that question, is this really true?
Yeah, I'm thinking of the question.
Digging down into it.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the question. So like with the sadness and a breakup, is it true that I'm sad? Okay, I could answer that with a yes. Who would I be without this thought? Well, if I didn't have this sadness, then I don't think I would be a very loving person, because this sadness is telling me that I deeply love and deeply care. That poem that I read earlier, I wrote for someone going through the struggle because I was empathizing with them and I'm sad for them. I'm investigating because it's hard to see the people we love in pain. And I'm trying to remember, okay, it's not my job to take the sadness over for that, to be sad for them. I'm trying to think of the words I want to use and they're not coming to me, but it is my job to send that love, to say, oh yes, this is hard. And to really feel, at least for me, I feel extremely vulnerable, and being able to sit in that uncomfortable feeling with them is also vulnerable to me because it brings up some of those memories of times when I felt like that, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. But I also need to remember it's not my job to feel that right now so much as to recognize what it means for them and to love them through it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's a hard lesson to learn because oftentimes we want to try and fix the problem because we're uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
But realizing what we can do. I mean, I remember when I first broke up with my ex, and I was at that stage where I wasn't eating. I wasn't doing anything. I had a friend who sat and listened and who loved me and brought me food and was like, "You've got to eat." She'd call me at night when I got home to make sure, did you have something to eat? Come on, you got to eat. I love you. It's going to be okay. You know,
Yeah.
um, and it was hard to hear that at the time. I wanted to think my life was over and you know, everything is horrible. I'm never going to find love again. I'm never going to, be with anybody again. I'm destined to be alone the rest of my life. You know, I went through
Yeah.
all of those thoughts, and the truth of the matter is none of that was true. I had a hard time seeing that, but seeing that someone loved me
Mm.
and
Yeah.
someone cared about me and someone was making sure that I was taken care of, that and meant prompting me to take care of myself. They helped,
Right.
yes, by giving me food, but like making that call, hey, did you eat?
Reminding
um
you.
right, because I could easily go back into that whole well of sadness.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it was just like they were putting the bucket down the well,
Yeah.
until I was willing to kind of, and give me the sustenance I needed until I was willing to climb out of the well.
Right.
Um,
It's
and
I'm
yeah,
just
no,
gonna
it's
I'm
just really
wondering
hard.
it is, and I'm wondering, just thinking about it, because I know for me, I feel like the answer is yes. Did I need to spend time in the well to really process and feel those feelings? I think the answer is yes. Would you say that is true for you, or would you say, nah, maybe not? Or would you say something else?
You know, I, I think I didn't have a lot of tools really to go through it and to process that. So I was really down there, and it took a while to get that and to kind of realize and to develop those tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at young people, and especially teenagers and things like that, and they have a boyfriend and they or a girlfriend and they break up and they think their life is over. It's the worst thing, because they usually don't have experience of loss, and they also uh I think we fail as a society to teach people I am enough.
Yeah. In fact, that you're reminding me, I need to repost that. The little blurb that that we have that says, "I am, and because I am, that is enough." Because or I think actually the one I posted was, "You are, and because you are, that is enough." Because I think that
Yes.
might be a really important reminder to a lot of people, especially during Suicide Awareness Month, that because they are, that's enough. and
Hmm.
and sometimes it's really hard to remember that, especially I think in the midst of pain and suffering, especially when we want to be held or rocked, which is the poem I brought from the book today. Let me just go ahead and get it up here for us. It should be here any second because I know what I'm doing. Not um, and this one's called "Rock Me." And I think sometimes in the midst of that pain and suffering, this is in some ways exactly what I wanted. Because this is actually, I believe I wrote this when I was in the midst of pain and suffering, and this is what I wanted. Someone please rock me in your arms. I just want someone to love me. What happened when I was little, I don't know, but I just want to be rocked in your arms. No security have I to feel safe. No time for you to love me today. Please, won't you rock me just one more time? I don't care, even if there's a chime. And that's out of my book, Poems from a Lost Soul. It's available on Amazon. But yeah, sometimes I think we just want to be held. We just want to know it's going to be better. At least for me.
Definitely.
In that suffering. Oh.
I just kicked the camera stand. It's true. I mean, I was sitting here talking about the breakup, and I was recalling it. So in my memory, I was bringing that, and it brought a little bit of a tear to my eye. Because I'm remembering that pain. And I think that's the other thing that we can bring to it when someone comes with us is bring our own pain, not to necessarily share with them, but to empathize with them.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse when someone comes in and they're like, well, this happened to me and this happened to me. And, because this happened to me, you're going to make it, and it becomes all about them and no longer about sitting with me in that pain and just empathizing with what it's like to be there. It almost cheapens the experience and takes away, I think for me, the ability to process. So it's been interesting as I walk beside the person who had this breakup and just sit in the feeling. And again, it's just super uncomfortable. And I'm so lucky that I get to love.
Yeah.
That I get to remind them that they are loved.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to, bring a question. What if you were never there? We've talked about your pain disorder, and I understand what pain is, but not certainly to the magnitude that you deal with every day.
Right.
And not to the extent where it has been permanently, what do I want to say? Permanently disabling.
Right.
And so, but I can imagine what that would be like, what that loss would be like, even though I have not experienced that.
You mean the loss of the on top of the pain to sit with someone in their pain on top of my physical pain, or what? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking. So there's two things there. There's the pain that you deal with on a daily basis, which, I can't relate to that type of pain because I don't know what it is.
Right.
I don't have children. I don't know what it's like to give birth to a child.
Right.
But I can try and put myself in that position, and I can listen to the words, and I can, feel the anguish having been with people, giving birth and the process of that and knowing what they're going through, and seeing that and use what I have in order to have that empathy. The same thing as so there's two aspects. There's the pain aspect that you have, and then there's the disability, and having to, what you've had to go through to do that. I mean, that's a loss, right?
Right. So yeah. So losing the ability to use my hands the way I want was a huge loss. Having pain every day can be overwhelming, and is another loss because it does impact, physical pain impacts ability and capacity to do, but it also gives me there's also emotional pain that comes with that, because now I cannot do what I would like to do. So there's, gosh, I guess there's almost like three different things, many things that happen. And so, the physical, the emotional, and then the lack of ability to use my hands or walk as far as I want to, those are all losses, and they all create some pain. I would say the physical pain is tremendous, but gaining insight into how to address the emotional pain that comes with all of those losses is probably the most important to learn and to grow with. I hope that makes sense.
It does, and I brought that up because we're talking about losses of relationships, and a lot, because most of us can relate to that. And I think there are just some losses that are never going to get better. But I think you address the important thing is, yes, the physical ability is lost. The pain is there and it is constant. But the emotional aspect of it is what you could address and what you had power over.
Right, and surrounding myself with people who were willing to be supportive and that were safe, because there's nothing worse than not being having capacity, and then having someone in your life that says, "Oh, that's not real," or you can do more than you're doing, and they really don't know. Maybe it's what they want and what makes them the most comfortable, I think, when they're saying things like that. But the most important was the people who supported me and who give me the assistance that I do need so that I can be successful. I think a lot of people get this idea that people with disabilities just want to sit at home and collect a check, and I can tell you that is way, 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 way far from the truth. If anything, we want, at least my experience. Thanks, Becky. Becky says she loves our discussion. My experience is that all of the people I know, all of the people that I've met that have disabilities, want to give back, and so we need to make it possible. And even in that, but we also, because there were points in time during my process, the loss was so devastating that I absolutely could not see. I could not give back to society because I was processing this tremendous loss of the lack of ability to use my hands in the way that the only way I knew how, and I didn't know how to ask for help because I didn't know what I needed. So it's like there was this huge transition period that took a long, long time for me to even understand what I needed. And I think we need to give grace in those moments and trust that that person is on a journey to better understand themselves and to get to the next step. And if we can just love them through that struggle, that is one of the most important things we can do, is just love them the best we can.
Thank you for that. And that's exactly where it was. No matter if it is a breakup or a life-changing struggle, is to listen and to love.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's been almost 30 minutes. And what a great ending. Spread love. That's what we say. That'll be our takeaway from today. Spread love.
Spread love. All right.
Maybe, or take that person, like in the Rock Me poem, take them into your heart and imagine rocking them and sending them that love. That would be powerful, I think, just to give that person that. Yeah. It's speechless. I'm speechless, Kat.
Yeah, I am too. I just love that kind of image of just rocking them, you know?
Definitely. Well, I do want to point out, everybody, that Kat has a new background. She does have her own show now, Breaking the Lens of Bias. You can find her, I think you're on YouTube and Facebook, definitely on Facebook under Breaking the Lens of Bias. There's a group or a
Yes,
page. Is it a page or a
yes.
group? I'm trying to
It
remember.
is a page, and
Okay.
it is the first episode will be out this week. I haven't decided the day, but I will let everyone know on my personal page and on the Breaking of Lens of Bias page. Please like and or subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, like, follow, share with your friends if you like what she's got to say. She's a librarian, so she's going to come up with all kinds of fascinating things to share with you, I promise. So thank you for watching our show today, Relatively Damaged Live. I also have Relatively Damaged Live podcast, and as you know, my book. So please support me by either getting the book or listening to the show is fantastic. And again, share with your friends if you like what we're talking about. I think that's it for today. Yeah, Kat?
Yeah, and next week, please join us next week with a very special guest. We will announce that guest shortly. We know who it is, but
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to having a guest on with us on Mondays. It's our first time we've had a guest, so
Yeah. Woohoo! Party,
woo!
party. Okay.
Well, we're still closing out Suicide Prevention Month, so I don't know how much of
Yes.
a party it will be, but I think we'll get some really great insights to close out the month.
That's true. That's true. I think we can do both. I think we can have fun and talk about suicide awareness in such a way that we can share that message with so many people, because we'll be able to do it in a way, hopefully, that it will reach them, um, in maybe a way that it hasn't reached them before. I don't know. Let's just go with it. We'll see what happens. Okay. I'm going to close it out. I'm Angela.
And I'm Kat. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Okay. See you later. Bye.